For this tutorial, we will cover the use of John the Ripper to be able to recover the actual passwords for identified hashes from a compromised system. This is a continuation of the exploitation activity, and the typical password cracking is a post-exploitation activity. It can be used for privilege escalation, it can be used for pivoting attacks, and furthering the lateral movement. So what we have in front of us is, first we need to make sure that the Kali and Metasploitable targets can talk to each other. So make sure you send a ping and you have the network configuration in a host-only mode. Next, you need to make sure you have established shells, and for this purpose I use the Hail Mary. As you can see, I already have established shells. The next part is, in the shells, I need to figure out what level of access I have. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to right-click on the shell, go into Interact. It will open up a new tab. In this tab, you can type in who am I, in this case www data. Now if I go in with www data, I see that the only membership that I have for this particular user account is www data. What I'm looking for is an account with, a privileged account with more inherited rights that allows me to look up the file where password hashes are stored. In Linux, we have two files that actually contain the information for username, and then another file that contains the information for the actual password hashes. So the first file with the username is passwd, PASWD. And what we're looking at as this www-data user is when we cat or view the content of the ITSI passwd, we see these different usernames. Okay. When we try to look up the information for the actual hashes, we see no result. And this is because we likely don't have permissions to see this file. For this purpose, we go into a different shell. Now, if the shell has root access, if you notice here the who am I, in this case we're root, we execute the cat command to view the contents of the ET shadow, and now we actually have hashes. Okay, so this $$ tells us the type of hash. Then we have the actual hash, and we have the salt with it, and then account information, when it was created, when it expires, and so on. So what we need to do at this point is we need to have a shell. From the shell, we need to have access to the shadow file. From that, we can just right-click, highlight the contents, go ahead and copy them, go into a text editor like LeafPad, paste the contents, and it looks like I didn't grab them. So come back here, copy, and go back into the LeafPad, paste. So now what we need to do is make sure we save the file. In my case, I saved it as, simply called it hashes, and I put it on the desktop for ease of finding. So the next thing we need to do is we can use John the Ripper through the command line, or we can use the graphical user interface. And in here what we have is we need to actually import a password file. So we select open password file, we go into the location of where the file is stored, we select hashes, we click open, and it will be populated. In here we see the klog user has a hash, and we see the automated discovery of the type of suspected hash. Now the next step is we need to crack these hashes. And what we can do is come to the options, and we're going to use the default option, which is going to go into single crack mode, then a word list mode, then incremental mode. The word list, it's dictionary. So with a dictionary, we can go in and use the default dictionaries provided in Kali. And the location is user, share, I think it was word lists. So word lists. From here, I have a number of options. Now, one thing to note is we want to display all files. The nmap list is provided the RockU is already unarchived. If you were to use the places computer and navigate to the same user share word list location, you need to use the archive manager to unarchive the file, or you can use tar and zxbf to actually unarchive it. And then you have this file. It's very long. It's from the RockU compromise, and it's going to take longer time. Some of these other files are smaller, less number of options, but they may be quicker. So what we will do is, if we want to, we can specify a word list file. What we will rely on is the default built-in John the Ripper dictionary for this particular activity. So if we go into these passwords, the next thing we need to tell it, since we specified the default option, is start. If you notice at the bottom now, we have a progress bar. We have 0 cracked out of 7 hashes, and those are calculated. Look into the hash column. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And because these are very commonly used passwords, we recovered 6 out of the 7. Let's find out which one was not recovered. Now, MySQL, look at this. Pro FTPD, look at this, exclamation. So usually the exclamation means that password either was set and not changed, so maybe default, or it was no password. So those are some things to consider. And let's see, if we look into the one that was not recovered, was the root. Now, if we have a password that was not recovered, since we have root access, we have the capability potentially to change the root password. So recovery is only from the purpose of, again, furthering our lateral movement as a particular user, and being able to not raise any suspicion, as simulation. If you change the password, that will change some timestamps and may trigger SIM or intrusion detection alarm. So depending on the objective of the penetration test, you may use this particular activity as a privilege escalation, password verification, strength verification, or a stealthy type of attack to further the actual pen test objective.